Jennifer, we need you to come with us right now.
Oh my God. Okay, what is going on, sir?
Can you explain the refund money you've been pocketing for the last 2 years?
To her guests, Jennifer Alejandra Insuasti was the smiling face of Disney magic, the person who made problems disappear. To investigators, she was something else entirely.
I was just doing my job. I was processing a guest complaint.
All
I
the
can show
refunds
you.
went into accounts with your last name on them.
No, listen to me.
45 fraudulent refunds. More than $160,000 routed into accounts she controlled. 28 months of theft running parallel to a job whose entire function was making strangers smile. By the time the Florida Department of Law Enforcement finished tracing every destination account back to a sibling, an in-law, or a known associate, Jennifer Alejandra Insuasti was looking at a first-degree felony carrying a statutory maximum of 30 years in Florida State Prison. The investigation that put her there did not start with a tip. It did not start with a victim. It started with Disney itself. Before we go any further, have you ever wondered what happens when the person paid to fix your problem is the one quietly stealing from the company that signs her paychecks? Drop a comment and tell me what you would do if you discovered this kind of scheme inside your own workplace. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. We cover the white-collar cases the local news will not touch. Jennifer Alejandra Insuasti was born in Cali, Colombia, in the spring of 1988. Her parents were Marlon and Sandra Insuasti. Marlon worked construction. Sandra cleaned hotel rooms. The family lived in a third-floor walk-up in the Barrio San Fernando. 3 rooms, 1 bathroom, a balcony where Sandra hung laundry on a wire that ran across the alley to the building next door. Jennifer was the middle child, an older brother, Andres, born in 1985, a younger sister, Daniela, born in 1991. In 1996, when Jennifer was 8 years old, the family flew to Miami International Airport on tourist visas and never went back. They settled first in Hialeah, then moved north to Kissimmee, Florida, in 1999, into a beige stucco rental house off Pleasant Hill Road. Marlon found work on a hotel construction crew. Sandra took a job in housekeeping at a Holiday Inn near the Disney property. The reason the family chose Osceola County over any other landing spot in Central Florida was simple. Walt Disney World was 12 miles away. The hospitality industry around it absorbed every Spanish-speaking adult in the county. There was always work. Jennifer attended Thacker Avenue Elementary, then Den John Middle School, then Osceola High School. Teachers remembered her as quiet, polite, and bilingual to a degree that adults found striking. She could code switch between Spanish and English mid-sentence without hesitation. Her 9th grade English teacher wrote on her report card that she was remarkably composed for her age and a natural at customer-facing work. A guidance counselor noted she had the kind of soft voice that disarms angry adults. She would carry that voice into every job she ever held. She graduated from Osceola High in 2006. There was no money for a 4-year university. She enrolled at Valencia College and worked a rotating series of customer service jobs to pay for it. A kiosk at the Florida Mall selling cell phone accessories, a hostess station at a chain Italian restaurant on International Drive, a front desk shift at a Comfort Suites 2 exits up I-4. She finished an associate degree in hospitality management in 2010 and immediately applied to every theme park within driving distance. Universal Orlando hired her first. She spent 2 years working merchandise at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, learning the choreography of corporate hospitality, the scripted greetings, the discretionary recovery gestures, the way a $5 pin handed to a crying child could prevent a 1-star review. She was good at it. Her supervisor at Universal wrote that she was consistently one of the highest-rated team members in guest recovery situations and exceptional at de-escalation. Customers who walked in furious walked out grateful. The skill set was specific. She had it. In April of 2014, she applied for a position at Walt Disney World. The hiring panel at Disney's casting center on Vista Boulevard noted 3 things in her file. She was bilingual. She had 2 years of theme park guest service experience. She presented herself in the interview with what one panel member called an unusually warm and steady demeanor. She was hired as a front-of-house guest relations cast member at Magic Kingdom, starting wage $12.75 an hour, assigned to City Hall on Main Street, USA. For 2 years, she worked the City Hall window. She handled lost children, stroller theft, ride malfunction complaints, dietary restriction issues, and the daily stream of guests demanding to speak to a manager about something a manager could not change. Her annual reviews use the same vocabulary every year: empathetic, composed under pressure, demonstrates initiative in guest recovery scenarios. In March of 2016, Disney promoted her to Guest Experience Services Coordinator and moved her into a back-office team headquartered in a low-gray building on Buena Vista Drive. The promotion came with a pay raise, a new badge color, and a credential the frontline cast members did not have. She could now move money. The family was proud. Andres, her older brother, was working as a manager at a chain car rental counter. Daniela, her younger sister, had married a man named Hector Restrepo in 2015 and was working as a medical office receptionist. Marlon and Sandra still rented the same house off Pleasant Hill Road. When Jennifer told her parents about the Disney promotion, Sandra cried in the kitchen, and Marlon called every relative in Cali to tell them his middle daughter was now una ejecutiva in Disney World, an executive at Disney World. The phrasing was not technically accurate. It would be the phrase the family used for the next 2.5 years. Walt Disney World Resort hosts roughly 50 million guests every year across 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, and more than 30 owned and operated resort hotels. The cast member workforce numbers approximately 75,000 people, making Disney the largest single-site employer in the United States. The volume of guest interactions on a given day at Magic Kingdom alone, a moderate traffic Tuesday in March, runs into the hundreds of thousands. A small percentage of those interactions go wrong. Rides break down, reservations get lost, dining experiences underdeliver, children get sick on the teacups. A subset of the people on the wrong side of those moments will demand compensation, and Disney, whose entire economic model depends on the perception of magic, will almost always provide it. The Guest Experience Services team exists to handle that compensation at scale. Coordinators sit at workstations equipped with a proprietary internal application that interfaces with the guest reservation system, the resort billing system, and the corporate treasury function. Within that application, a credentialed coordinator can issue 4 kinds of recovery: a refund to the guest's original payment method, a paper check mailed to a guest's home address, complimentary park tickets loaded onto a digital account, and comped resort nights credited against an existing reservation. The standing approval threshold for a Guest Experience Services Coordinator was, at the time of Insuasti's tenure, up to $5,000 per individual transaction. Anything above that required a supervisor's secondary approval. Anything below, it traveled on her credential alone. The audit framework that governed the function was designed for a specific failure mode. Disney's risk team had built the system to catch a coordinator who tried to refund a fraudulent transaction into a brand new bank account or a brand new payment instrument that did not appear anywhere else in Disney's records. The fraud detection logic looked for what auditors called orphan accounts, destination accounts with no prior history in the Disney ecosystem. An orphan account receiving a refund would trigger a flag, and a senior fraud analyst would review the originating complaint within 48 hours. The system was sharp. The system worked. The system caught the obvious thieves before they ever cleared their second transaction. The system did not, however, treat with equal suspicion a refund that traced back to a destination account already documented in a prior, properly resolved complaint. Those accounts were considered known. They had been reviewed. They had a paper trail. The audit logic assumed that a refund routing into a known account was, almost by definition, a follow-up to a legitimate transaction. The system trusted the trail it had already walked. That trust was the blind spot. Inside that blind spot, for 28 months, Jennifer Alejandra Insuasti went to work. The first fraudulent refund went out on the afternoon of August 14, 2016, 5 months after her promotion. The amount was $412. The The destination account was a Bank of America checking account held jointly by her brother Andres and his wife. The originating complaint Insuasti attached the refund to was a legitimate guest grievance from June of that year. A family from Ohio, whose monorail trip had been cut short by a mechanical issue, who had received a properly authorized $800 resort credit, whose case file was marked closed and reviewed. She did not alter the original complaint. She did not delete the original refund. She did not touch the Ohio family's record at all. What she did was open a new refund line item, reference the closed case number in the supporting field, type A one-line internal note describing a follow-up service issue, key in her brother's bank account information as the destination, and approve the transaction. $412 left a Disney corporate account that night. From the audit system's perspective, the money had returned to a destination tied to a previously reviewed complaint. No flag fired, no analyst reviewed. The Ohio family, 6 states away, never knew their case number had been used. The second fraudulent refund went out 11 days later. $680, attached to a different closed case from May, deposited into an account held by her sister Daniela. The third followed in September, the fourth in early October. By the end of 2016, she had processed 9 fraudulent refunds totaling roughly $17,000, distributed across accounts held by her brother Andres, her sister Daniela, her brother-in-law Hector Restrepo, and 3 additional individuals, friends from her Universal Orlando days, all of whom had given her bank account information for what she had described to them as a Disney rebate program for cast member referrals. None of them, according to their later statements to investigators, had asked a second question. She kept a spreadsheet, not on her work computer. On a personal MacBook Air she carried in her tote bag every day. Each row contained a date, an amount, a destination account, the closed case number she had attached the refund to, and a single column she titled Split. The split column tracked what each associate kept and what each one returned to her in cash. The arrangement varied. Some recipients kept everything and were settling unrelated debts. Some recipients returned 80% in cash. Her brother Andres, who handled the largest volume of transactions, returned 90%. The cash came back to her in plain envelopes, in coffee shop parking lots off Pleasant Hill Road, in the kitchen of the family's rental house on Sunday afternoons after lunch. In 2017, the volume increased. 22 fraudulent refunds that calendar year. Individual amounts grew bolder, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 at a stretch, always under the $5,000 supervisor threshold, always attached to a previously closed case, always routed to one of 7 accounts. She bought a 2018 Honda Civic in cash that spring. She moved out of her parents' house and into a rental at 2219 Sylvan Court, a 2-bedroom townhouse in a gated subdivision off Boggy Creek Road. She paid the security deposit and the first 3 months' rent in money orders. She told her father she had been promoted again. Marlon called Callie. The signs that her colleagues did or did not notice during that period were minor. A coordinator on her team would later tell investigators that Insuasti was the fastest closer on the floor, that she handled refund volume at a pace nobody else matched, that she rarely escalated cases to supervisors, that she stayed late twice a week to clean up backlog. None of that triggered concern at the time. Disney's internal metrics rewarded throughput. A coordinator who closed cases quickly without escalating them was a coordinator the system was designed to reward. By the spring of 2018, the spreadsheet on her MacBook contained 37 entries. The running total in the bottom right cell read $132,690. She processed 4 more fraudulent refunds in May, 3 more in June. The 45th and final fraudulent refund went out on July 9, 2018, $3,140, attached to a closed case from January, deposited into Hector Restrepo's account. 6 days later, she submitted her 2-week notice to her direct supervisor at Guest Experience Services. She told her supervisor she had accepted a position with a hospitality consulting firm in Tampa. There was no consulting firm. Her last shift was July 27th, 2018. She walked out of the gray building on Buena Vista Drive at 5:14 in the afternoon and did not return. The audit that ended Jennifer Insuasti's freedom was not triggered by anything she did. It was triggered by something she could not have anticipated. In late 2018, Disney's corporate risk function commissioned a year-end reconciliation across the guest experience services platform. The review was routine in name and unprecedented in scope. A team of 3 internal auditors was assigned to walk every refund issued in the trailing 24-month window and match it, transaction by transaction, against the originating complaint record and the destination account history. The reconciliation took 11 weeks. By the second week of February 2019, the lead auditor, a woman whose name appears in court filings only as the first reporting party, had identified a pattern that the standing audit logic had been built to ignore. 23 refund transactions, processed across an 18-month span, had been attached to closed case files that had already been resolved with a separate, fully documented refund. The follow-up refunds, on paper, looked like standard service recovery escalations. In practice, the closed case files contained no internal notes describing a continuing grievance. There was no second-guess contact. There was no second complaint. There was, in the auditor's phrasing in her internal report, no underlying event to refund against. She pulled the destination accounts, 23 transactions, 6 destination accounts. 2 of those accounts were registered to the same surname as the coordinator who had processed the refunds. She kept pulling. By the end of the 3rd week, she had identified the full 45 transaction pattern, the 7 destination accounts, and the single coordinator credential that had keyed every entry. Her report ran 14 pages. The cover sheet was a 1-page reconciliation grid, 45 rows, each row showing a fraudulent refund stacked beside the legitimate cover account it had been attached to. She sent it to Disney's vice president of risk on a Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, Disney's outside counsel had walked the package across to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement field office in Orlando. Insuasti, by that point, had been gone from Disney for 7 months. She was working part-time at a real estate brokerage in Kissimmee and had told her family she was studying for her broker's license. She had no idea the audit existed. FDLE assigned a special agent named Daniel Kowalski to the case in late February. He spent 6 weeks reading the Disney internal package before he subpoenaed a single bank record. He wanted to understand the cover mechanic before he asked a bank for anything. When he finally did start subpoenaing, the destination accounts opened up cleanly. Names matched, addresses matched, the brother in Hialeah, the sister in Kissimmee, the brother-in-law sharing the sister's address. 3 Universal Orlando alumni scattered across 3 counties. Every account, every deposit, every withdrawal pattern. The package built itself. Stories like this one rarely get the airtime they deserve. If you want to see more white-collar cases broken down in detail, subscribe and turn on the bell. We do not let these stories disappear. The FDLE investigation, formally opened on February 25, 2019, was not a complicated case in the criminal sense. The Disney internal audit had done most of the work. What FDLE needed was admissible evidence, bank records under subpoena, account holder verifications, and a documentary trail that could be presented to a state grand jury without relying on the corporate audit alone. Special Agent Daniel Kowalski, a 14-year FDLE veteran assigned to the Economic Crimes Unit out of the Orlando Regional Operations Center, took the case. Kowalski's first set of subpoenas went to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Navy Federal Credit Union. The returns came back across 6 weeks. Account number ending 4471, registered to Andres Insuasti, address in Hialeah, Florida. 18 incoming Disney refunds totaling $63,410. Account ending 8829, Daniela Insuasti Restrepo, address on Cypress Parkway in Kissimmee. 11 incoming refunds totaling $31,200. Account ending 0117, Hector Restrepo, same address as Daniela. 6 incoming refunds totaling $19,000 $840. The remaining 10 refunds were spread across 3 accounts held by a former Universal Orlando co-worker in Tampa, a former Comfort Suites co-worker in Orlando, and a high school acquaintance in Lake Nona. Every single transaction in the 45-row Disney reconciliation grid had a name on the receiving end. Kowalski's team executed a search warrant on the townhouse at 2219 Sylvan Court on the morning of November 14, 2019. Insuasti was not home. They recovered the MacBook Air from a nightstand drawer. The spreadsheet was not encrypted. It was saved as a file titled Expenses 2018.numbers. Inside the file were 4 tabs. 3 of them contained ordinary household budget tracking: rent, utilities, car payment, groceries. The 4th tab, labeled with a single character, X, contained 45 rows of dates, amounts, destination accounts, closed Disney case numbers, and split percentages. The bottom right cell read $163,410. The number matched FDLE's bank trail total to the dollar. Kowalski also pulled text messages under separate warrant. The exchanges between Insuasti and her brother Andres ran across 2.5 years. They escalated in incrimination as the scheme matured. Insuasti, October 3, 2016. Going out tonight, should be there by 8. Andres, October 3, 2016. Got it. Same arrangement. Insuasti, October 3, 2016. Same. Insuasti, March 17, 2017. Bigger one this time, 2400. Pull what you owe me Tuesday. Andres, March 17, 2017. Okay, you sure on the case number? Last one almost got bounced. Insuasti, March 17, 2017. It's clean, reviewed already. They don't look twice. Insuasti, June 8, 2018. Slowing down, thinking about wrapping up. 2 more, then I'm out. Andres, June 8, 2018. Smart, don't get greedy. Insuasti, June 8, 2018. I never got greedy. That's the whole point. The text exchanges, the spreadsheet, the bank records, and the Disney internal audit reconciliation went to the state attorney's office for the 9th Judicial Circuit in late spring of 2020. The information charging document was filed under seal on June 15, 2020. The single count read, grand theft of $100,000 or more in violation of Florida Statute 8112.0114(2)(a), a first-degree felony carrying a statutory maximum of 30 years in Florida State Prison. 2 days later, an FDLE liaison contacted Carlos Mendiola, a Lake Mary criminal defense attorney whose name was already on retainer for Insuasti, and informed him that his client had been charged. Mendiola called Insuasti. She did not, according to his later remarks to the court, sound surprised. Jennifer Alejandra Insuasti was not arrested at gunpoint. She was not pulled over on I-4. She was not handcuffed in front of her family. On the morning of June 29, 2020, she walked into the lobby of the Osceola County Jail on Simpson Road in Kissimmee, accompanied by her defense attorney Carlos Mendiola, and turned herself in. The booking officer who processed her was Corporal Renata Vasquez. The intake conversation was recorded on a fixed booking room camera and a body-worn camera both. Vasquez asked the standard questions: full legal name, date of birth, current address, employer. Current employer? Self-employed. Doing what? Real estate. Okay. And the charge today is 1 count of grand theft, over $100,000. Do you understand the charge? Yes. You're surrendering voluntarily? Yes. Anything you want to say on the record before we move to fingerprinting? My attorney is here. Mendiola, standing at her left shoulder, raised one hand. Insuasti said nothing else for the remainder of the booking process. She did not cry. She did not argue. She did not, at any point, deny what she had done. Vasquez later described her demeanor in a supplemental report as composed, cooperative, and emotionally flat. Bond was set at $100,000. She posted it through a Kissimmee bondsman that afternoon and was released by 4:30 p.m. She was photographed leaving the jail by an Orlando Sentinel stringer who had been tipped about the surrender. The photograph that ran in the next morning's online edition showed her in a gray t-shirt and dark jeans, carrying a manila envelope, eyes lowered, walking toward a silver sedan in the parking lot. Mendiola, 2 steps behind her, declined to comment. The case never went to trial. Florida's first-degree felony grand theft statute carries a 30-year maximum, but Insuasti's posture, no prior record, voluntary surrender, full cooperation, written acceptance of responsibility, and a defense team prepared to deliver a complete restitution plan, pushed the state attorney's office toward a negotiated plea. Negotiations ran from August 2020 through early 2021. In March of 2021, Insuasti appeared before Circuit Judge Margaret Holloway in Courtroom 4A of the Osceola County Courthouse and entered an open plea of nolo contendere. The sentencing hearing was held 6 weeks later, on April 22, 2021. The state sought 8 years of state prison, followed by 10 years of probation, and full restitution of $163,410. The defense sought a downward departure to county jail and probation, citing Insuasti's lack of prior record, her cooperation in the ongoing investigations of her brother, sister, brother-in-law, and 3 associates, and the fact that no individual guest had suffered any financial loss. Judge Holloway took the matter under advisement for 48 hours and returned to the bench on April 24th. Her sentencing remarks ran approximately 4 minutes. The portion read into the record included the following. Ms. Insuasti, the position you held at Walt Disney World Resort was, by its very design, a position of trust. The company gave you discretionary authority over corporate funds for one reason, so that you could repair the experience of guests who had been disappointed. You used that authority correctly thousands of times. You also used it 45 separate times across more than 2 years to steal. The sophistication of the cover mechanic you employed, attaching fraudulent refunds to legitimate previously reviewed case files, demonstrates that this was not a moment of weakness. It was a deliberate, studied scheme. You pulled 6 members of your own family and social network into it. You did not stop because you were caught. You stopped because you had decided to stop. The court must weigh that deliberateness. Holloway sentenced her to 6 years in Florida State Prison, followed by 12 years of supervised probation, with full restitution of $163,410 due jointly and severally with co-defendants once those co-defendants were adjudicated. She was remanded into custody at the conclusion of the hearing. She was processed initially at the Central Florida Reception Center on Beeline Expressway and ultimately transferred to Lowell Correctional Institution in Marion County, the largest women's prison in Florida and one of the largest in the United States. Lowell houses approximately 2,200 women across multiple security classifications. Her assigned release date, with day-for-day credit, falls in the spring of 2027. The investigations of her brother Andres, her sister Daniela, her brother-in-law Hector Restrepo, and the 3 additional associates were active at the time of Insuasti's sentencing. 2 of those individuals, Andres and Hector, were subsequently charged with second-degree grand theft and conspiracy. Both pleaded out to probationary terms. The remaining 4 were not charged. The family, according to a relative who spoke to a local Spanish-language news outlet on condition of anonymity, no longer speaks to Jennifer at all. Walt Disney World Resort issued a single sentence in response to a request for comment from the Orlando Sentinel on the day of sentencing. We thank the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the State Attorney's Office for their work, and we have updated our internal audit protocols to address the methodology used in this scheme. The townhouse at 2219 Sylvan Court was vacated and released in July of 2021. The 2018 Honda Civic was sold at auction. The MacBook Air, with the spreadsheet still on it, was logged into FDLE evidence and remains there. The job that gave Jennifer Alejandra Insuasti her authority had a single purpose: make Disney guests happy. She used it to make 7 other people happy instead, and lost her freedom, her family, and her career in the process. This story was sophisticated, but the case on the right-hand side is even more shocking. Click it now.